Hey gamers, welcome back to the channel where we talk everything movies, TV show, music, and books. So, fun fact about me is I have some enemies. Some enemies of the art world. Um, they are the two that we're not the two of the three that we're not talking about today are Sam Levinson and Emerald Fennel, those two. And the one we're talking about today, my biggest book world enemy, is Colleen Hoover. So, go back. Okay, so let me give you guys a little rundown on my experience with Emerald Fennel as Colleen Hoover, wrong lady. My experience with Colleen Hoover and sort of like where my distaste for her came. So, let's time travel back to 2020 and 2021 when book talk was a huge thing. Sorry, let me take my glasses off. They're really smudgy and the lights are. Ugh, what the heck? Oh my gosh, spoilers. Don't look. Oh, because my glasses are dirty. My bookshelf broke like 10 minutes ago when I was setting up for this. And yeah, that's rattled me. Anyways, moving along. Okay, so back in like 2020, 2021, when book talk was a huge thing because of the pandemic, I was like 14 and 15 years old. I know, we a little tot, or unk, depending on how you see it. But I was we little tot, and I did not have TikTok because I was 14 and 15, and my parents didn't want me to have TikTok. So I would watch book talk compilations on YouTube. I'm really exposing myself right now to like get introduced to new books and stuff, and that's how I like sort of jumped into like the popular book talk books like Throne of Glass, Court of Thorns and Roses. What are some other ones like Cruel Prince, Caraval, those type of books that are very popular on book talk, and that's how I knew them is because I would watch book talks in compilation form, not on actual TikTok. Anyways, so in these compilations there always been this contemporary author that sort of like loomed in the background that like I kind of was always mystified by. And that is Colleen Hoover. People would make like book compilation, would like make TikToks being like the best Colleen Hoover books, and it'll tear your heart out and make you cry for days. And I was always like, okay, what is going on here? And so I was like, okay, maybe eventually I'll read one of Colleen Hoover's books because like they're contemporary romance. Like, what could possibly be wrong with that? Fast forward a couple of years to when I was a little bit more mature, and I continued to watch book talk compilations because I still didn't have a I still didn't have TikTok on my phone. I had Instagram, but it didn't feed the need for book talks. Anyways, I sort of like started getting exposed to like some of the like weirder side of her books. For example, like in the famous line in Ugly Love, you know the one I'm talking about. I'm not gonna say it because it's foul, but it's pretty bad. And so I was kind of like, doesn't I actually read his books? And I was kind of like putting off, not that I had like even bought her books or like was anywhere near, but I always thought like in the back of my mind, someday I'll like read these books because I'm reading all these TikTok books. Yeah. So anyways, I thought like maybe someday I will maybe read some Colleen Hoover books. But then like I saw these like quotes of hers from these books, and I started to like learn a little bit about the plots. I was like, oh, that's kind of strange. And then my best friend at the time, I have a vivid memory of this. She read It Ends With Us over the summer, and then she was reading Verity. And I remember we sat next to each other in a push, And instead of like doing our work like we should have been, she was showing me the crazy out-of-pocket lines from Verity. And this paired with the fact that like Colleen Hoover's always been divisive. Like some people like really love her and some people like really hate her. Just told me that like maybe I don't want to read her books. And that was kind of like my opinion on her all the way up until midway through 2024 when the It Ends With Us movie came out. Now, this was right before I started college. And my college years, so the last 2 years, my college years, I loved a video essay. That kind of started in the summer of 2024, right when all the Ends With Us drama was going down. So I very much got exposed to a different side of Miss Hoover that the romantic book talks do not show you. And I realized that her books, well, okay, I had it in my head at that moment that her books were the scum of the earth. Because the plots were problematic and like we're just doing crazy things to do crazy things, just like my other two enemies, Sam Levinson and Emerald Fennel, you know? So like I had sort of decided that paired with the fact that it ends with us, all the ends with us drama. And okay, here's what like really did it for me. It really like made me think, okay, there's something not right about you. So It Ends With Us, if you don't know anything about that story, is Colleen herself has talked multiple times about how it is based off of her mother's story. It's a story about her mother's like relationship and yada yada yada. So then when the press tour for the adaptation of the book to movie adaptation of the book based off of her mom's abuse came to, like, when we were on press tour, she sat next to Blake Lively as Blake Lively said that y'all should wear your florals. Wear your florals, get dressed up, take all your girls to go see It Ends With Us. Really undermining the fact that the story is about domestic abuse. Why are we saying let's have a fun little girls' day to go watch a movie about domestic abuse? I don't feel like that's really, call me the woker, but I don't feel like that's really appropriate, you know? So anyways, that just like set me off the wrong way, and then coupled with all the video essays about the It Ends With Us drama, and then all of like watching people talk about her, how problematic her books are, just made me not like her and be like, hey, I'm not going to read her books. Flash forward to last year, around this time, I started going to the movie theater every week. And with this, I started like seeing previews rather frequently. And there was a preview for a movie called Regretting You. And I did not know that was a Colleen Hoover book. But I was like sucked into this trailer, kind of. And come to find out it's based off a Colleen Hoover book, and the plot is actually trash. And that's when I started to realize that her slopification of books is encroaching on our movies, film, my fave medium, film. We're encroaching on it. We're taking our bad, nasty books and we're encroaching on my favorite medium. So anyways, I got very angry, and then I realized that we're really seeing more and more, even though It Ends With Us wasn't a good movie and like it was meant to horrible critic reviews, every single one of her book to movie adaptations is met with terrible reviews by both audiences and like critics. So I don't know why we keep making these. I guess they must be making some money. But anyways, that's my beef with Colleen Hoover, is that her books are scum of the earth. She uses her mother's story as an excuse when she wants to use it. And her books are infecting cinema. So that's why I don't like her. But until very recently, I had never read one of her books. All of my knowledge about her books and her writing style had come from other people, specifically people I don't know on the internet. And so, I try to be very fair, when I'm reviewing things. And so I decided that mayhaps, I should read one of her books just to say I was right. So that's what I did. I went to the library because ain't no way am I spending money on her book. I went to the library and I picked up Regretting You. And so today we're going to discuss it. But first, I have a fun little clip of me going and getting Regretting You from the library because I thought it'd be fun to vlog. I hope you enjoy. Hey gamers, okay, so we're at the library. First things first is I have to get my pin changed because I don't remember it, because the last time I was at the library was probably 8 years ago when I was 12 years old. Also the library has been remodeled since I have last been here, so we might have to go on a scavenger hunt. So yeah. We found the Colleen Hoover section. I did have to get a completely new library card because mine was so old. Silly. Okay, so our options are It Ends With Us, which I really don't want to read that one, or Regretting You. So I guess we're going with Regretting You. We're gonna go though on a little adventure to see if we can find some of the old Greek mythology books I used to check out all the time. Welcome back from the side quest. Okay, so when I was thinking about how I want to review this book, I decided that I think a lot of the reason why Colleen Hoover became very big on book talk is because she has some very book talk, like TikTokable quotes, like quotes that would draw people in if you had some random video playing in the background with the quote and then some epic music that would draw people into the book. And so because my origins for finding out who Colleen Hoover is, and for a lot of people is through TikTok, I decided we were going to go through, and sort of our roadmap through this was going to be her wonderful quotes. So starting at page 1, we've got the quote, "And then there's Jenny, my little sister, my best friend. But I know she's not the source of my emptiness. She's the primary source of my happiness. Even though we are complete opposites, she's outgoing, spontaneous, and loud, and has a laugh I'd kill for. I'm quieter than she is, and more often than not, my laughter is forced." So this is our introduction to our major characters. Them being, this is our major older characters, I should say. This is literally from page 1. So the person who's narrating is my good friend over here, Morgan. She is one of our 2 narrators. It's her and then her daughter Clara. So this is Morgan. She is very clearly not like other girls, as this quote so clearly points out for us. Specifically, let's look at the part where it says, "I'm quieter than she is, and more often than not, my laughter is forced." That's very not like other girls, and I don't like that. So that's Morgan, and she is dating this guy named Chris. This is Chris. He's her first and only boyfriend. And then over here we have Morgan's sister, Jenny. She is younger by 2 years, and so Jenny and Morgan's parents are kind of weren't really there. So basically Morgan raised Jenny. So but Jenny's like the more fun, outgoing one. She's a little bit more spontaneous than our good pal Morgan over here. And then over here we have Jonah, who is besties with Chris. And he is dating Jenny. So, yeah. So, we get introduced to these people. Specifically, there's an emphasis on Morgan and Jenny's relationship. This idea that, like, they're besties, but Morgan also kind of, like, helped raise her. So, there's an interesting idea of a dynamic there. Okay, let's move on to page 16, where we meet some other of our characters. The quote reads, "Not that I'm trying to impress Miller Adams. It's hard for me to worry about the opinion of a guy who seems to go out of his way to avoid me. But for some reason, I do. That's so dumb. I hate that. I just don't like the writing of that. I can't explain why, but it's just very cringe and very millennial. Um, so this is where we're introduced to our other two characters. So we have Clara. Something I forgot to say on the other slide is this story starts like 17 years in the past from where the rest of our story takes place. And it's as these characters are, the four from before are going to a party. And while they're at this party, Morgan kind of like realizes she's probably pregnant and with Chris's baby, and that baby is Clara. So Clara, she's driving home from theater practice because of course she's a theater kid. Yeah, she's driving home from theater practice, and she realizes that as she's driving home, she sees this guy named Miller Adams on the side of the road, and we're not really like, we're basically like just told that he's like this, we're like, it's like alluded to, but like it's not as cool as like not as showing, not telling. Like she basically like doesn't spell anything out and just kind of like hints at it, but in a really bad way, if that makes sense. But he's like this cool guy that Clara kind of has a crush on. And like there's also this idea of him like not wanting to be around her at all. And I think that is kind of like dumbly thrown in there, as we're going to see later. But yeah. So, anyways, Miller Adams, he has a girlfriend. That's a really important point with this story because, spoiler alert, this story is all about cheaters. Cheaters, pumpkin eaters, had a wife but couldn't keep hers. That is what this story is about. So, that's Clara. She's coming home to her mom's birthday dinner. Okay, pulling ahead. So we're at mom's birthday dinner. This is Morgan's POV now. This quote says, "It isn't until this moment that I'm reminded of the heaviness I used to feel when he was around. Sharing the same air with him sometimes felt stifling back then. Like how he was selfishly taking up more of it than he needed, and I was hardly left with any air at all. That same stifling feeling is back again, surrounding me in my own kitchen." Okay, so we're back at it with the like alluding to, but not being very clear. Like we're saying pretty things so that we can get like views on TikTok. You know? Okay, so basically, I'm going to give you some more lore about this little friend group. So after Morgan found out she was pregnant, Jenny's boyfriend, Jonah, who's best friends with Chris, he like up and left town. He was like, "Get me out of here." He up and left town, and then like a year ago, oh my gosh, I had hiccups. Then like a year ago, his mom died or something. He had a death in the family. And Jenny, she pictures. Okay. Jenny, who's not pictured, she like came to console him, and that led to the two of them hooking up. And then she ended up getting pregnant. So they got together to raise the baby. yeah, so basically they're back together, but he like left and got out of Dodge right after Morgan had said something, because there's this idea that she alludes to but doesn't really clarify for any thematic purposes at all except to make pretty words. I think that's what I'm trying to say when it comes to her writing style. That like Jonah makes her have this like intense feeling, which is really interesting because Home Slice is married, and this guy is dating and about to marry her sister. Really interesting feelings going on here. Yeah, we're gonna get into that more later. Okay, this is on page 40, a couple pages later, where it says, I've been thinking a lot about that lately. Now that Clara is getting older, I've been feeling this gaping hole inside of me, like it's sucking the air out of each day that passes by, where all I do is live for Chris and Clara. So there's another really interesting idea that sort of like Colleen Hoover waggles in front of us like a little toy, that Morgan doesn't feel like she has an identity because she basically spent her entire childhood raising her sister, and then right as she was going into adulthood, she got pregnant, gave birth to Clara, and became a stay-at-home mom and wife. So now that Clara is like almost 17 years old, she's sort of having this identity crisis. And I think this is a really interesting topic that this book could have delved into more, but it doesn't really. It kind of just like waggles it in front of us like, ooh, this could be an interesting idea, interesting concept that could be a meaning behind this book. But we're actually not going to like dive into it at all. We're just going to waggle it in front of you. Okay, so there's Clara, or no, not Clara, there's Morgan. She's in her feels. Okay, next up we have a quote from page 48, and this is Morgan sort of giving us some funny little lore about her and Jonah. So she says, he never ate the watermelon ones. It was his least favorite flavor and my favorite. So he always left the watermelon for me. So Jonah, when they were younger, he always used to save the watermelon Jolly Ranchers for her because she loved them and he hated them. Notice the air quotes around that. Hated. Um, so anyways, he hated, air quote, air quote, air quote, he hated them. So he'd always save them for her. And so then for her birthday, after not seeing her for years, he gives her a giant bag full of them. And so anyways, she's just like more of this like these kind of sussy feelings going on here that are kind of problematic. And by kind of problematic, I mean very problematic. Okay, we're on to the next day after the party, and this is Clara, and she is saying she's talking to her Aunt Jenny because Clara has always been very close with her Aunt Jenny, and she's always gone to Aunt Jenny for advice. Um, yeah, another very important point is that um, her dad doesn't like the idea of her and Miller Adams together. That's a very important point, and Morgan sort of like also adopts that. Okay, so the quote goes, I know, I groaned and folded my arms over my chest. Attraction is so stupid, and knowing he unfollowed me already put me in a shit mood, and it's only 7 in the morning. Okay, so this is Clara talking to Aunt Jenny the next day, and so when Clara saw Miller Adams on the side of the road. She goes, picks him up. She ends up like breaking her flip flop, and he like, oh, like, and she like makes a joke like, oh, you better replace this for me. He's like, okay, yeah, come back to my house. So he comes back to her house. They kind of have a chit chatty thing, and then he like follows her on Instagram as she's driving away. And then in the morning, because remember he has a girlfriend, in the morning he unfollowed her already. Sussy, sussy. Um, He also, like, his girlfriend called while Claire was driving him home, and he lied about it. He goes, oh yeah, some dude's just driving me home. No, little sussy. Okay, so basically she's complaining about this. It's very cringe, I'm not gonna lie. Attraction is so stupid. Ugh. Okay, moving on. All right, now we're to page 67. So the day after her birthday dinner, Morgan is taking care of Elijah, Jonah, and Jenny's baby. She's taking care of him because it's Jenny's supposed first day back. And while she's taking care of him, that's when she gets a call that Chris is in the hospital. So she runs to the hospital, and her sister works there, so she's asking, like, oh, can you go grab my sister so, like, she can be here for me in this moment? And this is what we're walking into with this quote, where it says, I shake my head frustrated. Elijah is growing more agitated. He's hungry. No, she started this morning. There's a moment of hesitation from the woman on the other line before she repeats herself. She isn't on the schedule until tomorrow. I've been here all day and she's not even here. Okay, so she knows Chris. Where's our pictures? Morgan knows that Chris just got into a car accident. And shortly after this quote, Jonah arrives. And she's like, oh my gosh, like, they're saying Jenny isn't here, and he's really confused and stuff like that. And he's there for Jenny because Jenny was in a car accident, and then Morgan is there for Chris. They were in the same car accident. So they start piecing together that the fact that Jenny didn't actually have work, they start piecing together that Jenny was having an affair with Chris and vice versa. They were having an affair. And this is crazy news because I don't know if you've been following what I've been putting down, but Home Slice Morgan and Home Slice Who's Not Pictured, Jonah, have basically, for the entirety of this novel so far, all 67 pages, they have been emotionally cheating on their partners. Like, very clearly. From the, like, very clearly intense feelings when each other is around. The fact that he got out of Dodge after she found out she was pregnant and she was gonna, like, get married to Chris. Like, and then the fact that he saved all the watermelon Jolly Ranchers for her for years, that's not, like, platonic feelings. Okay, so we kind of been hinting at the fact that those two have been emotionally cheating. Come to find out that those two were actually cheating. Jenny and Chris, like, not actually cheating. That was the wrong word. The right word is physically cheating. So basically, they're all snakes. So, anyways, then what happens is Chris and Jenny do not make it. They are dead. And so they're kind of Jonah and Morgan are kind of picking up on the fact that the two of them are cheating. But as soon as she starts thinking that, Morgan is like, we cannot let Clara put that together. These were her two favorite people in the world. She will be devastated to find out that they were cheating with each other and betraying all of us. And so basically, like, this quote is where they decide to lie about what happened. And this is what Morgan says to Jonah. She goes, we can tell them that Chris had a flat and Jenny gave him a ride to work, I suggest, at least until Jenny and Chris can explain it themselves, because at this point they didn't know that they died. But anyways, so their idea to cover this up is to say that Jenny had was like just driving him to work out of the kindness of her heart because Chris got a flat. Not that they were cheating together and lying that they had work so that they could get away with cheating. Okay, you picking up what I'm pulling down? And then so next, oh yeah, there's Jenna, there's Morgan and Jenna. Okay, next. Oh, get ready for this long quote. This is really, I really wanted to put this analogy in here to show how much I dislike Colleen Hoover's writing. Okay, so get ready for me to read this. Okay. I used to collect snow globes when I was younger. They lined my shelf. They lined a shelf in my bedroom, and sometimes I would shake them up one by one after another, then sit on my bed and watch as the flurries and the glitter swirled around inside the glass. Eventually, the contents inside the globe would begin to settle. All would grow still, and then the globes on my shelf would return to their quiet, peaceful states. I liked that. I liked them because they reminded me of life. How sometimes it feels like someone is shaking the world around you and things are flying at you from every direction. But if you wait long enough, everything will start to calm. I like that feeling of knowing that the storm inside eventually settles. This week proved to me that sometimes the storm doesn't settle. Sometimes the damage is too catastrophic to be repaired. Okay, so this is Clara's POV right before the funeral. And this analogy that sort of like Colleen Hoover is using of the snow globes representing life and how Clara sort of like always like resonated with that. It doesn't really make sense to me because why would a 16-year-old or a child, why would a child like snow globes because of life? No offense, no offense, but no child is thinking that deep into them. They just like to see the glitter and the flurries swirl in the glass. Like, there's no way that Claire would have been thinking about that before this giant catastrophe. So like that's my number one problem with this. It's also just like stupid. It's a stupid analogy, I think. Like it's stupid and like kind of like okay, yeah, I guess you're right about that. Like there's nothing clever to it, you know? Like I think there should be a little bit of a cleverness into an analogy, you know, when you put it in your book. This just feels like she wanted an analogy to get like the clickarooskies, like to have, as I said before, the TikTok with the like landscape back with like the landscape video in the background and the quote text and then a very sad song and the captions like this quote destroyed me from regretting you. Like that's what we're going for with putting this in our book. And I just think that it's bad. And that's really the only reason that I pulled this quote out of the book. Here's Clara being emo. Anyways, all right. So on page 83, we're still in Claire's POV. It was in the midst of her dad's funeral because, okay, Morgan split up Jenny and Chris's funerals into 2 days. 2 days, two different whole excursions. And Clara was not happy with that because that meant she had to go to two funerals back to back about the two most important people in her life. And so as she's sitting through her dad's funeral, she gets really overwhelmed. And so she goes outside and sits. And guess who finds her? Miller. So, little backstory. So the reason that Miller unfollowed her was because his girlfriend immediately found out that he was lying and that Claire was the one who took him home, and she broke up with him for that. And so he unfollowed her in an attempt to get her back. And so now he's back together with his girlfriend Shelby. And the quote goes, I'm back together with Shelby. And then it goes, I take it back, I felt that. She was just talking about how like she doesn't really feel anything at the moment. Like she just feels numb. Okay, I take that back, I felt that. And then she said, that sucks. I say, not really. That's what Miller says. And then it goes, I roll my head and look at him pointedly. No, it does. It sucks. You shouldn't have even brought it up. Honey, you are not being a girl's girl at this moment. Ain't no way you're actively hitting on a man who is in a relationship, who walks up to you just because he feels bad that the two most important people in your life just died. Okay? And we're gonna find out that that's not entirely Miller's. He's not just trying to be a nice guy. There's a little bit of nefariousness behind it, but she is just being a actively terrible human being by sort of like saying these things about a guy who just got back together with a girl that he was dating. Like, it's just bad. And I really don't like this plot point in this book of Miller being in a relationship at the beginning. And not only him being in a relationship at the beginning, but that relationship gets broken up and then they get back together. As if they just like wanted their, as if Colleen just wanted there to be more drama between these two in the beginning. Like the fact that her dad and aunt died wasn't enough chaos in her life. We just had to add in the guy she likes having a girlfriend and her legitimately being the other woman. Like, it's so dumb to me. So incredibly stupid. Anyways, moving on. Now we're coming to page 96. So when she was with Miller, after they had their little talk and she complained about Shelby, Miller went, Clara was like, I want to get high. And so Miller went and bought her pot, which also is not something you do for a girl you're just platonically friends with. You clearly have a motive if you're buying her pot. Anyways, so page 96, it says, so she gets high and she like ran away from her dad's funeral and got high, and so her mom is really not happy with her. And this is the quote. This is from Morgan's POV. I nod, but I disagree with him. A free pass would have been appropriate for something milder than doing drugs. It's more appropriate for something like breaking curfew. I just can't let it slide that she left Chris's funeral to get high. Not to mention she was with the one guy her father told her not to spend time with. If I let either of those things slide, what will leniency lead to? Okay. So so basically, like, Morgan had been talking to Jonah, and Jonah was kind of like, you should just, like, let the drugs thing slide. Like, it doesn't matter that much. Like, girl's going through a lot. Like, let it go. And Morgan starts this trend throughout the rest of the book as her teenage daughter is mourning the loss of two huge people in her life. Of, like, just giving her no benefit of the doubt, having no conversation with her about like why she did what she did, and like really like I feel like here's what would have been appropriate. Okay. Me with all my mothering experience. Get ready for my take on what her as a perfect mother, I just made it louder. What she should have done. She should have had a conversation with Clara. Been like, hey, why is it exactly that you left your dad's funeral to get high? Like, let's get into it. They talk about their feelings. She still takes away her phone for a week because, like, okay, she did leave her dad's funeral to get high. Fair enough. But, like, she should have had a conversation with her about it. Then, like, I understand you're feeling all these feelings, but, like, running away from them isn't the smart idea. But instead, Morgan just gets angry with her. She doesn't follow my top-notch mothering advice. She doesn't follow that, and she just gets angry with her and just like yells and shouts at Clara. Because obviously that's gonna fix the solution. That's gonna fix the problem. Anyways, moving on. Alright, page 100. This is just a weird quote. So little Miss Clara, she's like, doesn't want to be home, so she's like finding anything to do. And um, she goes to the movie theater, which is where Mr. Miller works. And this is the quote, he makes a pained face after I call him that, almost as if it's gross. The thought. I like that the thought of being relatives repulses him. That means there's a chance he imagines us together in an entirely different capacity. Okay, first of all, the like incesty like undertones of this, straight up weird and was not needed. Second of all, why are you giddy that a man who is in a relationship with another girl has feelings for you? That's not something you should be kicking your feet about. Like, girl, you need to move on. You need to move on. Like, we should not be preying on the downfall of other people's relationships. That's just not a good thing to do. That's not a nice thing to do. Alright, sorry gamers. I had to go change my pants because my legs were getting cold in my skirt. So, outfit change. Okay, on to page 108 with the quote from Claire's point of view. I smile, but my smile only lasts for a fleeting second. I remember the last thing Aunt Jenny texted to me. You don't want to be the other girl. Trust me. She's right. Aunt Jenny's always right. What am I doing? Okay, so this quote alludes to two things. So, first things first, Clara has a lot of guilt over her dad and her aunt's death because at the time that the car crash happened, Clara was texting her aunt. Now, if you remember, Chris was the one who was driving, but they lied about that to sort of cover up that, like, Clara wouldn't think that wouldn't put two and two together about the cheating. So they told Clara that Aunt Jenny was driving. So Clara thinks that she was the one who caused it because she was texting her aunt. And legitimately, like, that's so dramatic. Just about as dramatic as I would expect Colleen Hoover to be. Okay, so that's the first layer of this. So the second layer is the thing that Aunt Jenny had texted her was, you don't want to be the other girl, trust me, which obviously she was the other girl for like years and years and years with Chris, and she didn't enjoy that, clearly, apparently. But she still loved him, I guess. Terrible, but okay. I'm getting tired. So, like, at this moment, this is right after she got home from the movies, she has Miller's number now, and she's sort of like texting him and stuff like that and being flirty, and she has this moment of realization that this man has a girlfriend, and her Aunt Jenny told her she doesn't want to be the other girl, and so she finally kind of has some sense knocked into her and is like, okay, I don't want to be the other girl in this situation, and sort of like blocks his number, and then, or she deletes his number and then stops, puts an end to her silly games. So there's Clara and Morgan. Okay, page 101. So Jonah, while this is going on with Clara, Jonah and Morgan went to this motel where Chris's car was at because the crash happened in Jenny's car. So they went to go pick up Chris's car at this nice hotel, and basically they got confirmation that the two of them were cheating. And so that's what's been going on. And then we get this part of the story. On page 111, it goes, this is Jonah. Jonah is doing these things, and it's in Morgan's POV. It says, he grips the sides of his head in frustration, then throws his arms out. I don't know. You've been with Chris half your life. How could you not suspect that he was Elijah's father? He walks back toward his car, but then thinks of something else to say that will likely make me even angrier with him. You knew that they were sleeping together, Morgan. Deep down, you had to know. We both know how good you are at ignoring what's right in front of you. Okay, again, there's a lot of layers to this quote. So first of all, we don't find out for sure, but they kind of suspect the fact that Jonah is not in fact the father. That, get ready for it, Jenny got pregnant with Chris's child, panicked, and decided that she was going to hook up with Jonah because she knew that Jonah would support the kid and pretend that the baby was his baby. So that's what they think is going on, and is probably pretty accurate. And so Jonah has this moment of realization. He just loses it. So he drops Elijah off at Morgan's house and is like, you take care of him. And then the second layer to this quote is this part where he goes, deep down, we both know, deep down, you had to know. But we both know how good you are at ignoring what's right in front of you. Now, Morgan is not a blameless character, but that is completely unfair of Jonah to say about her, because let's pull up the pictures so we can look him in the eyes. She was in a relationship. Okay? She was in a relationship. Actually, you know what? I'm kind of coming around to this not being entirely Jonah's, unfair of Jonah. Because, okay, they're both terrible people by this quote. So, let me try and process my thoughts on this that I'm putting together. He's very right in the fact that she ignored her feelings for Jonah because she what am I trying to say? Because it was easier for her to stay with Chris so that they could raise the child together. She ignored that. It's unfair of Jonah because what does he expect her to do? To just from his perspective, he doesn't really fully know if she has feeling for him. So what does he expect her to do? To just up and leave her, the father of her child, and all that security? What are we doing? So basically they're both terrible, cheating liars, who are unfair to each other. Moving on to page 118. I should hate that he's battling some sort of moral struggle right now. I like this feeling, thinking he might be attracted to me a lot more than thinking he hates me. Okay, we're back at it again with Clara not being a girl's girl and hoping and wishing that Miller's in love with her, even though he's in a relationship with another person. That's basically all I have to say about this one. Girl, move the heck on. You need to move on. I know your dad and aunt just died, but that gives you no reason to be preying on the downfall of other people's relationships, no matter how badly structured they are. Okay, we don't have the right to do that. Okay, page 122. We get this bad quote that I just liked. It's from Morgan. She's had Elijah for a week or something because Jonah just pawned the child off on her. And we get this quote where it says, lately, when I start crying, I can't turn it off. I cry with Elijah at night. I cry with him during the day. I cry in the shower. I cry in my car. And this is another reason as to why I don't like Colleen Hoover's writing, is Colleen Hoover tells us all of the feelings that are happening. She just tells us, especially the motions of grief in this. She does no effort in showing that these characters are grieving and diving into what that grief might look like, she just like states that they have grief, that she's crying all the time, except she does it in like a little bit of a flowery language, so we kind of like let her get away with it essentially. Yeah, so moving on to page 142, we have the quote, "I might have filled it out for you too." He stares at me, his eyes narrowed. "In case I broke up with Shelby?" I nod. He laughs a little, and then says, "Thank you." There's a pause. "So does this mean we're partners?" Okay, so this is Clara and Miller. So there's this like film project thing that Jonah wants Clara and Miller to do together. And he basically proposed this right after Miller's girlfriend Shelby broke up with him after the following incident, so at like the very beginning of the book. So he said he didn't want to do it. But Clara signed him up anyways. And so this is Clara basically giving that news to him, because basically he finally broke up with Shelby, and now he wants to like get with her a couple weeks after. Not suspicious at all. No. Not suspicious. And so then she tells him that he signed him up, and instead of being like angry about this, he's like totally into it, which to me proves that this man was emotionally cheating on poor Shelby the entire time. Justice for my girl Shelby. Okay? Justice for my girl Shelby, because she is truly the blameless victim in this story. I don't know if this is going to come up later in my quotes, I don't remember, but basically Miller tells Clara that he's had a crush on her all along, and Shelby, and like Clara had gone on a date with this guy like a couple of times, and around that same time Miller got together with Shelby, his like longtime friend. And so basically Shelby knew how much Miller had liked Clara before they got together, and so that was always a sore spot in their relationship. Hence why when he lied about being with Clara, she just straight up broke up with him, because she was like, if you're gonna lie about this, I'm not gonna be with you. Smart girl. Then when they got back together, he's conniving and wanting like behind her back just to break up with her to get with Clara, like basically right away. And so justice for my girl Shelby. She is truly the victim in this entire story. Nobody else. Everybody else is pretty heinous. So yeah. Next quote. Next we got page 153. And this, oh my gosh. Here we're going to get into something that I'm going to talk about later in this presentation towards the end, but a big beef I have with this book. Okay, the quote goes, I walked to the kitchen and grabbed, okay, I can't tell if I wrote the quote down wrong or if the quote is just bad grammar. Okay, I walked to the kitchen and grabbed a Jolly Rancher. I leaned against the counter and stared absent-mindedly at the hole in the kitchen door. Wondering why Joanna so casually brought up the day I found out I was pregnant, like it wasn't one of the worst days of my life. Okay, let's pull her up. I'm not a mother, but I feel like it's bad faith to say that the worst day of your life is when you found out that you were pregnant with your child. I feel like that's not great for like your child's self-esteem, you know? Like, I feel like that shouldn't be something you ever admit. Like, or you ever even think. Like, that is crazy. And so I read this book thinking that the title, Regretting You, meant that she was regretting Clara. That's what I thought throughout most of this book, is that was what was happening here. Is that like, well, we're going to get into this later, a little bit more in depth, but this is just a teeny snippet of my thoughts. Okay? All right, moving on to page 170. And it says, I feel terrible. She's right. I hurt her. And I ruined a memory she had of Jenny. And it was all for selfish reasons, because I'm mad at Jenny because Jenny hurt me. Okay. So these two get into a fight. I think Claire probably broke curfew or something. And so then Morgan lets it slip that basically any time that Clara had gone to Jenny for advice, she had told it to Morgan, and then Morgan just told Jenny what to say. And so basically anytime that Clara went to Jenny for advice, it was just Morgan giving her advice. And so they get into an argument, and Morgan sort of uses this in as spite towards our little Miss Clara. And I here's my thing with this is, first of all, it's terrible. Terrible mother thing to do. And I mean, she does admit it up there. But that doesn't really make sense because Jenny does give Clara some good advice without Morgan whispering in her ear. So, like, how much really, truly did Morgan, like, help influence what Jenny was telling her? You know? Anyways, little soft little nitpick. But anyways, this is more of these two just like fighting and just like Morgan being ridiculously cruel to Clara. Okay, I shouldn't say ridiculously cruel, but just like pulling out cruel comments during arguments to like hurt her daughter, you know? Instead of being like the adult, you know? Okay, on to page 187. All right. These words roll through me, slowly warming up the coldest parts of me. I stare at him silently, not because I'm speechless, but because that's probably the sweetest thing a man has ever said to me, and it didn't even come from my husband. All right, so this is Morgan talking about something that Jonah said to her. I really like this picture of Jonah because that I found on the internet because he looks so doofy. Like, why does Dave Franco look like that in that picture? Anyways, so this is like our first sort of romantic moment between these two that isn't like cheatery. And so like we're starting to see that like there has always been feelings between these two all along, which goes to prove my point that like just because these two didn't act on it, these two were cheating before Chris and Jenny ever cheated. Does not give Chris and Jenny a right to cheat, but this book like grazes over the fact of it like doesn't seem to want to admit that emotional cheating is cheating. Like these two weren't cheating with each other, and what is his stupid name? Miller wasn't cheating on uh Shelby because they were doing anything physical. But the feelings are still there. You're emotionally checked out of this relationship. And so, like, yeah, okay. It's just it aggravates me that that Colleen Hoover acts as if emotional cheating is not a form of cheating, you know. So, yeah. Anyways, page 194. This is such a crazy line, crazy line from Miller, Miller and Clara. Miller says, Miller. Oh, sorry. He laughs a little, but then he looks at me intently. You don't have to worry. I get more out of not having sex with you than I did during my entire relationship with her. That is a crazy line. What are we saying? We're talking about children right now, okay? Colleen is talking about children. I understand that like teenagers they like have sex, okay? But it's just a really weird line, and it comes across so icky. I just don't like it. I don't like it. Okay. This is page 203. We've got another argument between, you guessed it, Morgan and Clara, where Clara says, okay, Claire, I need to just read the quote. Clara stands up and wipes the back of her jeans. I'm not you, Mom, and Miller isn't Dad, and I really wish you'd stop referring to me as a mistake. And then Morgan says, you know that's not what I meant. So basically she keeps saying like her big thing with Morgan and with Clara and Miller is that, like, she's like, you're gonna make the same mistake I did, you're gonna get yourself pregnant. And then Clara is like pointing out the smart thing. She's like, you basically are just like keep referring to me as a mistake. Like, you keep calling the mistake of getting pregnant with me, like, your biggest mistake, and like you don't want anyone to ever like do that. And that is crazy. And more goes to my thought behind the fact that the reason that this book was called Regretting You is because Morgan regrets having Clara. So, yeah. Okay, page 222, page 226. It says, when he parts my lips and wait, when he parts my lips with his and I feel his tongue slide against mine, I experience a full body shiver. It's so much all at once. It's an awakening, but it's also a death. It's the realization that I've gone my whole life being kissed by the wrong man. So this is obviously Morgan and Jonah, and your husband, okay, he was a dirty, rotten cheater, but he has been in the grave for like a month at this point, and you're kissing his best friend and saying, this is the best kiss of my entire life. Like, that is crazy. I just want to say, we're going to start speeding through these because these just serve us like more evidence to my points towards the end of the video. So get ready for that. Okay, this is a little bit different than the points I have been making. Okay, so this is on page 229. So Clara Deer has just walked in on Jonah and Morgan kissing, and she's like, oh my gosh, you dirty, rotten cheaters. You've been cheating with each other on my dad and my aunt, my two favorite people. And so she's really, really angry at her mom. And so this is her thought process. Get ready for this. I'm running out of ways to rebel. I've done drugs. I've gotten detention. I've lied. I've missed curfew. The only thing I could do that I know would upset her is if I were to have sex with Miller. She's always begged me to wait until I was at least 18, which probably wasn't going to do anyway. But if she knew I lost my virginity at 16 to Miller Adams, it would destroy her. So, Clara, in her rage, decides that she's going to have sex with Miller, not because she wants to, or because Miller wants to. Oh no, because she knows it'll make her mom angry. That is the craziest plot point I may have ever heard in my entire life. And again, it seems kind of weird that Colleen is like making these weird situations with teenagers. Now, I could be way off base, and my hatred could be like discounting that, but like, it just feels icky to me. You know, it feels icky that she's doing this. So, yeah. And I think Clara is just a terrible person, a terrible girlfriend. She's not even a good girl's girl. Like, she's really got nothing going on for her. And, like, there's just not a good character in this book, except for my homie Shelby, but we never actually get to meet her. We just hear her name. So, that's dumb. Okay, moving on. Page 253 says, don't. I'm not listening to him or my mother. I'm just listening to the remaining adults of my life. I feel it may be counterproductive to my mental health. Okay, I picked this one just because it's a really millennial quote, and I think it is really bad because I just don't like it. Like, there could have been a much better way for Colleen to stress the importance of like Clara giving up on the adults in her life because she's feel betrayed by all of them, than saying, I feel it may be counterproductive to my mental health. That is the worst sentence I've ever heard in my life. Let's never repeat that ever again. Okay, page 268. We've got Jonah stands, forcing my eyes upward because he looms over me. You need to tell her the truth, Morgan. No, that's what Morgan says. And then Jonah says, you're losing control of her. She hates you and she blames you for everything. So, Jonah, my dude Jonah, he has this entire time been like, Morgan, you need to tell Clara the truth about the cheating. And that has become even more prominent when Claire found these two, because like I still think that Claire is within her right to be angry that these two have moved on to each other so quickly. Like obviously something was going on there beforehand, but it can be a little bit more forgivable if like she knew that her parents were cheating first. Like obviously these two were like emotionally cheating for years, but like it could the tale could be spun in Claire's mind that her aunt and her dad were cheating on each other with each other. And so like in all those feelings, these two came close together and they started to like form an attachment to each other. Like that can easily be spun, you know? Anyways, so this entire book we've just gotten Jonah telling Morgan that she needs to let her daughter know about the truth. And Morgan's still stubbornly like, no, I don't want to, like, I don't want her to have a terrible view of her father. Even though, like, he doesn't deserve that. Like, Claire has a right to know about who her father really was. And she also shouldn't, like, because she's not being honest with her daughter, it's ruining her relationship with her daughter. And I feel like it's more important that she has a good relationship with her alive parent who didn't lie about cheating than, you know, like than her alive, like than her dad who is dead because he was cheating. Not because he was cheating, but dead. He died while in the act of cheating. Anyways, basically, and like also there's this like hidden subtext that these two have been cheating all along, but also Colleen just doesn't like. I don't think that Colleen truly sees what these two have been doing throughout this entire book as cheating. So yeah. Anyways, moving right along to page 271, and we have this quote from Claire's perspective. It says, "I know you and your mother aren't getting along right now." He looks down at me, his hand tilting my face up to his. "But I feel like you're using me as your weapon in all these fights against her. It's not fair to me." Low-key, Miller's clocking Clara on her shenanigans, her lollygagging. He's clocking her because she has been this entire book, this entire freaking book. She has been like using, okay, I shouldn't say this entire book, but ever since like she brought him over to have sex, she's been using him to basically like make her mother angry, which is terrible. I can't believe you broke up his relationship with another girl so that you could use him like that. Like, that's terrible, Clara. And another thing that happened in between this quote and the other quote with her, like, wanting to have sex with him for revenge against her mom is at her, like, birthday dinner. At her birthday dinner, her mom was like really angry because she found out about her and Miller. She like started instigating fights with her and her mother, and Miller and her friend Lexi were there. It was just like really awkward, and yeah, that's what made him angry, more angry. Okay, page 277. We've got, "I've been dating Chris." Okay, so this is a flashback. This is a flashback to when they were younger. It says, "I've been dating Chris for a while at this point, and in all that time he had touched me when we dated. I had never felt that kind of current pass through me, the kind that not only left you breathless, but left you fearing you'd die from a lack of oxygen if you didn't back away. I want to slip with Jonah under the water and use his mouth for air." Guys, we got him. We caught them dang dirty those dang dirty cheaters. We cannot pretend this is foolproof. So basically, what's going on in this quote? So this is back when, like, right before I think Morgan found out that she was pregnant. They were having a pool party. The OG gang, Jenny, Chris, Jonah, Morgan, And Jenny and Chris were like on a side quest somewhere. And so it was just Morgan and Jonah, and they were in the water, and they're on this clue floaty, and they start playing footsie with each other basically, and like their like legs lock into each other, and they just like stare at each other. And this is Morgan's internal dialogue. And Home Slice, like this is just full on proof of cheating. I wanted to slip with Jonah under the water and use his mouth for air. That is crazy. Crazy behavior from Morgan. Like, that's just straight up emotionally cheating, if not bordering on physically cheating. You know? Like, break up with your boyfriend. Like, this is I just, when I got to this part of the book, I was like, thank you. This is what I've been looking for the entire time. The proof that these two are dirty, rotten cheaters. Anyways, moving quite along, because we got to get through this, okay? We're almost there. We're almost through this book. What possibly could more happen? Okay. 316, it says, I contemplate that and realize it comes down to one thing, selflessness. It seems so insignificant, but it's not. My mother was put through the most maddening, painful, tragic events in her life, and yet, as always, she put me first. Before her anger, her grief, the betrayal, she did everything she could to shield me from the truth, even if it meant unfairly taking the blame. Okay. Background. We're going to back up a little bit to explain this quote. So basically, like, after her birthday party, like, kind of went down the crapper, Morgan went over to Jonah's house, and they hung out, and they had a moment. And at Morgan's house, Clara and Lexi got wine drunk. And so Morgan comes home to find Clara wine drunk and gets really upset. Sends Lexi home, and then Clara starts throwing up, and of course she's like a good mother for once and like helps take care of her daughter. And she, in her drunken stupor, Clara makes a comment about how this is all her fault. And when she is sober, her mother asks her about it. What do you mean by that? And then Clara spills the beans that, like, oh, I was texting Aunt Jenny when she was driving, and that's why the crash caused. And then Morgan's like, wait, that's not what happened. Your dad was driving the car. And then Home Slice goes, why would you tell me that Aunt Jenny was the one who was driving the car? And then we get all of the dirty secrets all come out. And then this is sort of Clara reflecting on the fact that her dad wouldn't have lied to protect her mom if the roles had been reversed. But her mom lied to protect her. And this is like the point of the book where I started to like legitimately think that this book was a story about like regretting having this child at such a young age for Morgan. Like, she's regretting having this child. She regrets all that. And as the story goes on and as she grows and she learns, she finds out that she does not in fact regret having a child, and that like Clara means so much to her. And she grows into realizing that that's not the biggest regret of her life, and that she shouldn't regret her daughter because of other decisions she made. You know, that's where I thought this book was going. I thought it was going to be a cutesy, fun, like, mother-daughter story. And also it like fits the title of the book, Regretting You. Like, the idea of regretting her daughter, Clara. This like mentality that she has throughout the book. Okay? That's where I thought this was going. Okay? Just keep that in mind. That's where I thought this was going. Okay, moving on. Okay, there's Clara and what's her face, Morgan. We have 327. Okay, this is okay. So after they have their little talk about it, they sort of like have a like cool heart-to-heart moment. And, like, it's not, like, fully, like, fleshed out like I would have liked it to be to fit for how I thought the story was going. But they, like, have a heart-to-heart, and they're not fighting anymore. And this is Morgan's quote. It says, after school, she texted and said she was working on her film project with Miller. Whether she's telling the truth, I don't know. But she's 17. She has a curfew. So long as she meets it, I'm not going to press her for details on what she and Miller do when they are together. I already know she's on birth control, and I'm pretty sure they're not actively having sex, leading to regression, drunken admission. Okay, here's my problem with this. Okay, this is where I started to feel my theory about the theme of this book falling through the cracks. Because, okay, this is all great and all that, like, she's having these, she's like, you know what, she has a curfew. Like, I don't need to press her for details. So, like, be like, this is like her actionable growth, I guess. Except, I don't know if you guys remember, but this is what she's been doing for the entirety of the book. Like, she has been enforcing the curfew, still enforcing the curfew, and not really pressing for details. She hasn't really been pressing for details, ironically, throughout most of this book. So I don't really see how she has changed at all. It doesn't really seem like she has. I don't feel it. I don't feel the change within Morgan here. Yeah. Okay. We have page 334, and it says, okay, we're really coming to the cracks within my theory, okay? Page 334, we have this long monologue. Get ready for this. I pull my hand away from his shirt and bring it up to his cheek. I married Chris because he was the father of my child, and I wanted to make it work. I did love him, I add. I'll always love Jenny too. But you're the first and only person in this world I've ever loved without some reasoning or justification behind it. I just love you because I can't help it, and it feels good to love you. The idea of getting to raise Elijah with you makes me happy. And I know before we made love for the first time, I told you I'd regret it, but I've never been more wrong. I didn't regret it that night, and I don't regret it now. I'm confident that I'll never spend a single second of my life regretting you. I would bang on the wall, but it's the middle of the night and I have neighbors. What? You mean to tell me that this whole idea of regret was not her feelings for her daughter, but it was her feelings for Jonah? What? No. No. We're not, you gotta be messing with me. Okay? This whole monologue makes her entire journey with her daughter feel incredibly pointless. Okay? Walk with me for a second. Specifically the line, but you're the first and only person in the world I've ever loved without some reasoning or justification behind it. Okay? That idea, like, isn't inherently wrong. Like, loving someone for the first time just because you love them, not because, like, they're your child or they're the father of your child or they're your sister. Not an inherently bad take, I want to say. Where it gets bad, though, is in the context of this story and the growth that Morgan has been going on. Where is she? That Morgan has been going on through the story. That devalues her relationship with her daughter by then having this giant monologue about her relationship with Jonah. It just makes it seem like it was entirely pointless. Like, it didn't matter. Like, why did we go through all this character growth if you're just gonna if this, like, big emotional beat is not with your daughter? Like, we half did the emotional beat with your daughter, and now we're just pouring all of it into this stupid relationship. Which, get ready for hot take time. I don't think that this should have been a relationship existed. Not just because, like, it's messy and it adds drama to the story. No. I think that these two being in a relationship takes away from the idea of the mother-daughter relationship. It also doesn't make sense that, like, this doesn't really make any sense at all, like, thematically, because, okay, now I've read some books with some titles that, like, don't really make sense to the book, okay? There's a lot of YA fantasy that, like, it just doesn't, like, make sense. Like, why did you name your title that? Just because it sounded cool? Okay. The title, Regretting You. It infers that across this story, there's going to be some regret. So that's why I thought it was like her regret for her child, because all of the entire story, there's this theme of her, like, saying she regrets Clara or thinking she regrets having Clara. Okay? I could even see that the thread be she regrets not getting with Jonah instead of Chris. That is not what this quote is referring to regret about. It says, I didn't regret that night. Oh, wait, let me go back further. And before we made love for the first time, I told you I would regret it, but I've never been more wrong. I didn't regret it that night, and I don't regret it now. I'm confident that I'll never spend a single second of my life regretting you. The regret she's referring to has happened in the last 50 pages. You mean to tell me that this emotional beat and the title of this book all relies upon 50 pages? She's not talking about regretting not getting with Jonah sooner or choosing Jonah over Chris, even though, like, it probably wasn't going to work out. That's not what my homegirl is referring to. She's referring to the, like, guilt she feels with getting with Jonah in the second half of this book, which I guess is not inherently a bad style of regret, but Colleen doesn't put in the work for that to be the reasoning for this book, like, for the themes of this book. And so, yeah, anger, anger. And my biggest criticism with this story I have read by Colleen Hoover is that it's not her trash, flowery writing that just screams TikTok post. No, it's the fact that her themes are so muddled, and she sort of, like, sprouts up an idea every, like, 50 pages. She, like, sprouts out a bunch of ideas, hoping that, like, one person will it'll, like, resonate with someone and they'll love it. Or, like, she also does that for, like, shock value. Like, she just puts a bunch of different themes and she doesn't fully develop all of them, but she puts a bunch of them and somehow thinks that that's going to make up for the fact that she can't fully develop any of her themes. And it's just bad writing. Bad writing. So there's nothing more I can say about that other than that. So, yeah. Anyways, let's move on to our last quote. This has been page 347. Let's pull them up one more time. Clara and Miller. So basically, there was this point in the book where Clara talks about how she didn't want, like, a big promposal. So at the end of this book, they like are showing everybody their film project that they did together, which was about hating the color orange. No, being afraid of the color orange. So they show everyone that film, and then Miller shows her another film, and it's about her, and it's promposal, and we get this little quote snippet from him. Let me just read it. Okay, it says, it's from the moment when he's vlogging, basically the moment from when Claire had just driven past him at the beginning of the book. Mind you, when he was still in a relationship with Shelby. It says, so, Clara Grant, you just drove by, and you know you saw me standing out here on the side of the road. Here's the deal. I have a girlfriend, but I stop thinking about her when I go to bed at night, and Grant says that is a bad sign, and that I should break up with her. I mean, I've had a thing for you for a long time now, and I feel like I'm running out of opportunity. This makes me so mad because Why the heck would you have tried to get Shelby back after she broke up with you if you were clearly in love with Clara and you just wanted to get together with Clara? Why? Why on God's green earth did we do it that way? Like, it just proves that he's just an emotional cheater. Like, Colleen just proves that her characters are terrible people. I don't even think, like, by realizing it. Like, she's trying to have, like, these cute romantic moments, and it's just proving that her characters are terrible people. Anyways, that is the last quote I have for you guys. I did watch the movie that came out from this because it was on Peacock, and I don't even pay for that subscription, so yeah. And so I rated it 1 star. It's my Letterboxd review, and I said they really thought that they could end this movie with a Noah Kahn song, and I'd forgive it for being a bad movie. Yeah, the movie somehow worse than the book. I know, that's crazy. You just have to actually no, you should not read this book or watch this movie. Do not support that unless you're stealing Peacock to watch this movie or you are getting it from the library. Otherwise, you may not. Do not support this woman. Okay. And on to my Fable review. We have 1.5 stars in the angry face emoji, and my review was that stupid film made me cringe more than anything in this book, mostly because I've oh, I definitely missed a word. It's supposed to be I've made stupider films than that. I'm gonna have to go change that. Yeah, review doesn't really matter. The review part doesn't really matter. Fact of the matter, I rated 1.5 stars, and it only gets 1.5 stars because like there were some interesting concepts in it, and that's basically it. And my girl Shelby, justice for my girl Shelby. Like I don't think it's like I've heard that this is not the worst Colleen Hoover book. It was just the only one that was at the library, but still pretty bad in my personal opinion. Anyways, guys, this is probably going to be a long video, so I'm just going to wrap it up. Here are my socials. We got my Fable account, Isidora. Go follow me. Then we got my Insta, Isidora07. And then we got my TikTok, Isidora07. Go follow me in all those places. I hope you enjoyed this review of a Colleen Hoover book. I've just proven myself right today. And yeah, doing it for the research, guys. So I hope you enjoyed this video. See you later. All right. Bye-bye.